What's going on with some of America's biggest cities? Crime rates are skyrocketing, poverty is taking over, schools are failing, and infrastructure is crumbling. People aren't just leaving, they're fleeing. But why are these cities falling apart? And what does it mean for the future? Let's dive into the gritty reality of the cities everyone's abandoning. When a city starts losing its population, it's like watching a slow-motion disaster. Home values crash, businesses fold, and crime gets worse. And while some leaders promise change, the truth is hard to ignore. Some places are just losing their fight. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the cities people can't escape fast enough. Ready? Let's expose what's really going on. Baltimore, a city with charm and history, is drowning in problems. The crime rate is out of control, with violent crimes making national headlines year after year. People don't feel safe, and for many, that's reason enough to pack up and leave. Leadership? It's failing to deliver. Residents are frustrated with empty promises and little action to address safety, schools, or infrastructure. And let's talk about the job market. It's simply not competitive. DC and Philly offer better opportunities and safer environments, leaving Baltimore in their shadow. Families are especially disillusioned. With underfunded schools and aging infrastructure, staying in Baltimore feels like a dead end. Detroit is the definition of a modern-day wasteland. Once the industrial heartbeat of America, it's now a shell of its former self. Violent crime rates are 5 times higher than the national average, and unemployment sits at a devastating 8.1%. Survival here isn't a lifestyle, it's a daily fight. Poverty and fear are the city's new landmarks, overshadowing any whispers of revitalization. Sure, downtown gets some buzz, but beyond the glossy facade, it's a grim reality. Neighborhoods are crumbling, and hope feels like a distant memory. Detroit's population has plummeted from nearly 2 million to barely over 600,000. For those left behind, life is a brutal cycle of failing services, abandoned streets, and constant danger. This isn't just decline, it's a city on life support. If Detroit is a nightmare, Cleveland isn't far behind. This city has bled out, losing 60% of its population. What's left? Poverty, despair, and a median household income scraping by at $33,678. Survival here feels more like punishment. Education is in freefall, with public schools ranking in the bottom 5% statewide. Families are trapped in a system that offers no hope for a brighter future. Every road, every broken building, every unreliable transit stop screams neglect and decay. Sure, some trendy neighborhoods get the spotlight, but it's all smoke and mirrors. The truth, Cleveland is a sinking ship, and those who can are already jumping off. Pretty hard to look away, right? If you're still watching, there's more where this came from. Hit that subscribe button and stick around. This list is only getting darker. St. Louis tells a sad story of a city that's fallen hard. Back in 1950, over 857,000 people lived here. Today, just 293,000 remain. That's nearly 2/3 of the population gone. Why? It's not hard to figure out. St. Louis has one of the highest violent crime rates in the U.S., with almost 20 incidents per 1,000 people. Families leave because they don't feel safe. Jobs are another big problem. Even with big companies like Anheuser-Busch around, most opportunities have moved to the suburbs or out of state. Sure, the Gateway Arch looks nice, and the city has its moments. But for the people living here, it's not enough. They're stuck dealing with failing neighborhoods and a city that feels like it's been left behind. Birmingham used to be called the Magic City, but today it feels like the magic is gone. Its population has dropped from 341,000 in the 1960s to just under 200,000. The city struggles to give people what they need. Most households earn about $39,000 a year, far below the national average. Only 1 in 5 residents has a college degree, making it tough to find good-paying jobs. Housing isn't much better. While homes are cheap, many are outdated and in bad shape. Even with some new restaurants and tech startups popping up downtown, the changes haven't helped most people. For those in struggling neighborhoods, life here feels stuck, and they're looking for better options elsewhere. Baltimore, once proudly known as Charm City, has seen a mass exodus over the decades. From a booming population of nearly 950,000 in the 1950s, it's now barely holding on to 575,000 residents. That's more than a third of its people gone, and the reasons are chilling. Crime dominates life here. In 2023 alone, Baltimore reported a jaw-dropping 57 homicides per 100,000 people, one of the highest murder rates in the country. For many, just walking down the street feels like a gamble. Families are leaving not just because they want a better life, but because they fear for their survival. Yes, Baltimore has its bright spots. The Inner Harbor sparkles, and its historic charm draws tourists. But for those who live here, the reality is grim. Charm City is losing its charm fast, and residents are running out of reasons to stay. New Orleans, the city of jazz and celebration, hides a much darker truth. While tourists flood the French Quarter for Mardi Gras, the city itself is bleeding residents. From a peak of 627,000 in 1960, its population has dropped to just 376,000, and the decline shows no signs of stopping. The economy isn't much better. Outside the tourist bubble, finding stable, well-paying jobs feels impossible. The city's over-reliance on tourism means when the visitors leave, so do the opportunities. For many locals, scraping by is a daily struggle. Flint has become the poster child for tragedy and failure. Once a bustling hub for General Motors, this city has been stripped of its lifeblood. In 1960, Flint was home to nearly 200,000 people. Today, fewer than 80,000 remain. The collapse of the auto industry left Flint shattered. Factories closed, jobs disappeared, and the city spiraled into economic despair. With unemployment sitting at 7.5% and poverty swallowing up nearly 40% of the population, survival here is a daily challenge. The fall of U.S. Steel crushed Gary's economy. Jobs vanished almost overnight, and the city was left to rot. Entire neighborhoods are now ghost towns, with crumbling homes and overgrown streets. With unemployment stuck at 10% and a poverty rate of 34%. Gary's residents are fighting against the tide every day. Crime grips the city like a vice. The violent crime rate is nearly 4 times the national average, and underfunded public safety programs only add to the chaos. People don't just leave Gary, they flee, desperate for a safer, more stable life. There it is, 10 cities Americans are abandoning. Each one tells a story of hardship, fear, and the long road ahead. Which city shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening content.